Is a Silicon Valley headquartered international law firm with 15 offices around the world. We have about 1,100 attorneys. We have 2 offices in Europe, here in London and also in Brussels. We have offices throughout the US and then also 3 offices in China as well. And whenever I say that I'm an EdTech lawyer, an education lawyer, I know that for most people that doesn't really mean anything. So kind of what we do and what's unique about our practice at Cooley is that instead of just focusing necessarily on one specific legal issue across a variety of sectors, we have a team of attorneys that I work for that focus just on education and EdTech. And so you're working with a variety of issues that companies or investors or others in that space could face. So it might be a little bit about advising about raising venture capital or corporate issues, or it might be about privacy issues. It kind of just depends. And then we draw on within the broader Cooley structure to work with experts in specific subject matters as a client might need that. So it's a great practice. It's really interesting. I am very excited about this unique thing that we're doing. What we've started doing, in addition to just providing legal services, is we realized that we were, because we had this unique practice, a bit of a connection point for a lot that are in the space. And we go to a lot of events, and we decided that we wanted to start kind of doing our own things as well. So what we're doing here for the first time as part of London EdTech Week, which we're thrilled to be a part of, is sort of like an event that we have done in the Bay Area and in New York and in Shanghai as well in recent years, which is an event focused on investment, not legal issues. So we won't be having any legal discussions here, which is how I think we got most of you here. But we're going to talk about raising venture capital for the most part. We're going to hear from 2 different perspectives. One from companies and their view in growing successful startups in the education space, and then also from investors and their perspectives on it. So before we get started with that, though, we actually have a bit of a special treat as well. I was fortunate enough a couple of weeks ago to be a speaker and participant at the Israel Education Summit in Tel Aviv. It was my first visit there, and came away with an incredible amount of knowledge and connections into a really fascinating startup ecosystem there, and particularly one that is just growing very quickly on the education side. So Yaki is here from them and is going to give a few-minute kind of overview of what they're doing, what he's seeing happening in Israel, and then we're going to move on to the panel discussions after that. So Yaki, if you want to come on up.
Sure. Thank you.
I have a microphone here for you.
Make sure that Hi. Maybe now? Oh, no, sorry. Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be here. My name is Yaki Dayan. I established EdTech Israel in 2014 with the vision to connect the Israeli ecosystem to the international markets. Now, how many of you have been to Israel? Okay. How many of you also speak Hebrew? Okay, so let me, I'll try to, not to tell you the obvious, okay? Because, we are here, it's about obvious, we are within the context of EdTech X Europe, so I assume that everyone over here knows what EdTech is. Now, apparently, when I started, I always said that EdTech is a global phenomenon with a very local manifestation, meaning that what's happening in Israel is so different than what's happening in Brazil, and it's so different than what's happening in the UK, and so on. So one of the things that is interesting about the Israeli ecosystem is that the name EdTech sucks. Because when you translate it to Hebrew, it immediately education technologies, and education technology when you translate it to Hebrew is technology bechinuch, meaning only K-12, only formal education system, period. Not informal EdTech. This is something which is embedded. That's part of the Hebrew language. So now to try to explain to people that EdTech is much more than that, this is alone, in Israel, is a challenge. Now, the second challenge is that Israel is an ecosystem. And in Israel, we have plenty of VCs. We have the reputation about being an innovation country and so forth. So what is the definition of EdTech for an Israeli startup? It's very simple. If I get more money by saying that I'm IT and not EdTech. And if I'm, so give me one reason why I should come to the SUGSP. You know, EdTech is an organized the Israeli delegation to the latest SUGSP. We had about 8 speakers from Selena, from Amdocs, the IT company, from other companies. And I was approaching some Israeli VC startups and told them, I invite you to be a speaker. The SUGSP, they said, no way. If we ever go there, no one will ever give us another penny from the VCs. So another aspect that you maybe never thought about it is that the definition of EdTech is determined by where can I get more money of the VC. So that's, and maybe another thing that might surprise you. The third thing that might surprise you, I came from over 30 years in a totally different industry, in the telecom industry. Now, when people say that EdTech or education is becoming more and more like a mature industry, so I always like to say what were the things that were working very well in other industries like the telecom, and maybe we can apply them over here in education. And in telecom, we hated startups. Really? I mean, no AT&T would like to give any startup to do his billing. He will give it to Amdocs. No Orange UK will never give a small company from Israel the opportunity to manage their network, even if we have the better solution. Why? Because we are from Israel. And they are better off doing something with HP in Germany, that they have like 3,000 contractors and consultants that they can give to them. So the concept of what is, I think it's not working that well. So the concept of what is a startup becomes also very different when you speak about this in Israel itself. Because in Israel, if you're a service company doing something magnificent in education, you're not considered a startup. Even if in some other locations, that's okay. In Israel, if it's not pure technology, then immediately you're not a startup. Having said all that, meaning that if you want to do collaboration with Israel, if you want to come to Israel and be part of the Israeli ecosystem, you need to maybe expand your expectations. Because it's not only about the list of startups that maybe you can find on different sites like, there is a site, Startup Nation Central. You can go over there, click EdTech, and you'll see on there on the different companies. I can assure you, there are so many companies not listed over there, for some of the reasons which I earlier mentioned. But also, what is EdTech? Let's say that I would tell you that you are interacting with your clients over mobile. And I have this technology that without doing anything, I can detect the emotion, the level of nervousness or easiness or the kind of interaction of the person on the other side. This is something very good for education. Of course. But this company called ClickTail, that's an Israeli company. They do it. They operate like more than $60 billion over 10 years. They are an internet company. They do it for mobile merchant transactions, etc. No one would ever think of trying to apply this technology also in the education space. So it's not only about the startups. It's about the ecosystem. It's about some of the startups that maybe are hidden from your side because maybe they do not want to be regarded over there, but they understand that there is something going on. It's about parents. It's about people like the head of L&D from Amdocs. I mean, I like the opening statement of Benjamin and Charles on the first day, saying that the new CEOs need to consider themselves as the chief learning officers of the organization. We brought to the SUGSV the head of L&D from Amdocs. Amdocs, 25,000 people employee. He arrived there to speak about the fact that for the last 6 years, they are implementing free choice learning in the organization. Unbelievable, not something that you would expect from corporate education. So, at the summit, like 2 weeks ago, we had the president of one of the divisions from Amdocs, person responsible for 6,000 people, speaking about how this concept changed also the way that they operate for the better, and how he sees himself not only as a businessman, but also as an educator. So it echoes, it's exactly what we had on the first day. And this is something that you also, again, you'll not find all those listings over there. So if you actually want to interact with this ecosystem, I invite you to come open-minded. Not try to look at the list of startups, but try to see on the entire ecosystem. Come to interact with us. That's exactly what we do in the summit. We had about 50 international speakers from 12 different nationalities, 120 people coming from 18 nationalities to Israel for 2 days. I invite you to consider doing this next year, because I believe that you can find in Israel not only the startups, we do have magnificent startups. Actually, we have Itai over here that won the first prize on our startup competition this year. So, well done. So we have the startups, but we also have talents, we have also methodologies, we also have some other parts of the ecosystem that might be hidden off sight unless you actually come over and interact with us. Thank you very much.
Okay, so now I'd like to ask the first panel to come on up. Grab a seat here. That is you, yes. They should be on. You want to just test it out?
Sponsored by Coke.
Okay. The first thing I would ask is actually very easy. If each of you could introduce yourself to the audience and explain a little bit about what you're doing. Yeah, we'll start with that, I guess.
So my name is Joe Helmark. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Sana Labs. We provide AI as a service to the education industry. So make it really easy for publishers, education technology companies across K-12, professional education, and so on to implement AI into their learning products.
It's very simple. My name is June. I lead business development, business intelligence at 17 EdTech, previously known as EdTech, which the literal translation is doing homework together. So we provide digitalized homework solutions to teachers and students. And after they've done their homework, we use the personalized data to create premium content for monetization. And because of the involvement of the company, we now have expanded to providing the whole intelligence solutions to schools, as well as live tutoring, which is actually our biggest business stream now, as well as outsourcing our engines to different engines to education institutions in this space. Thank you.
Hi, greetings from Finland. Sari Kurvemettälä, CEO and co-founder of Kids Science. So we have playful and engaging STEAM education for 3 to 8-year-olds, but we offer the content, for example, to the kindergarten teachers, so they can provide the playful and engaging science lessons for young children and inspire the spark towards science.
Hi everyone, thanks for having us. My name is Julien, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Colbert School. We're building physical schools around the world to train software engineers. Think of it as a replacement for regular universities. Cool things about us, you may have heard about us a little bit, but we don't have any teachers at all. So the curriculum is led by software and peer learning. and students at our schools do not pay anything upfront or while they're at the school, but only when and if they find a job at the end to align the incentives of the student and the institution. Thanks.
Hi everyone, so I'm Arnaud, the founder of Wanda VR. Wanda VR is a software platform dedicated to the creation and discovery of learning experiences using XR technologies. So our platform is used today by more than 100 universities around the world and 150 businesses, so both in the higher end space and corporate training mostly. We count as our clients Harvard University and NYU as one of them. Basically, it's a standalone turnkey solution that allows learners and trainers and educators to really experiment with this new technology and understand how it's going to change the future of education.
Yeah, I've tested it. It's really cool. You should test it too.
So great. So I think it'd be really good to hear a little bit more about your journey to where you're at now, right? So two questions that I'll combine for you, which are, tell us a little bit about your fundraising or investor-related experience to date, to the extent that you're willing to share, and maybe as part of that, either on the building a company side or working with investors, tell us one thing that if you were going to do it over again, you might do differently. Whoever wants to jump in first is welcome to.
I can start. I just said today to one of the VCs that I felt that when we started fundraising for our seed round, so we are like 18 months company. Before that we had years of research, but we started fundraising last autumn for our 1 million seed round. And first I contacted many like normal VCs, not education VCs, because I think that there are quite few of those in Scandinavia and Europe. And they all wanted to meet us and felt that, yeah, we are an awesome company and startup, but then they were all saying that I think you should focus for the EdTech VCs because the education sector for VCs is totally different comparing to other startups and tech startups. And after I changed my kind of pitch to the education VCs, it felt like I came home. So I really want to thank for the investors what we have now from Europe and Asia, is that we really have received heavy input and insight from them and help. And I think that was the best way to do it, not to go to the normal VCs. So if I do something differently, I would go straight to the EdTech VCs and investors and not to the many meetings which felt that they were useless first. And yeah, we closed our 1 million seed round on March, so that's where we are.
Can I ask, like, how many of you are VCs here? Oh, okay. And how many of you are entrepreneurs? Okay. So who do you think that raising money sucks? Patrick, you got your answer. It's really, I think it's really tough. You have this vision for making a better world, and then like you think that at the beginning you think that everybody will understand that and everybody will help you. The truth is that nobody is going to help you really, but nobody also is going to tell you not to do it. So that's that's also cool. But like at Holberton, we've had like several rounds before. Like we had the first seed round, and the story is that I was the head of marketing and growth at a company called Docker before. So I was at the board meetings and everybody knew me. And when I left the company, I had like one of the main VC, like taking his car and like getting a meeting with me like right away and say, hey, like here's a $1 million check, just please take it. And I'm going to call some friends and I'm going to get 2 million rounds, and I had nothing to do, and it's like, shit, this is awesome. And then the story is like much harder, because then you need to build a product, and we need to show that, you have a big market. If you don't have a big market, then VC, don't really care anymore. Even though there would be like lots of great companies at medium scale that would be like really great to have in this world, like nobody cares. So you always have to juggle between your vision and what needs to be done to make the company grow and survive. And I think that's one of the things and a lot of us have learned. Yeah, I think you said.
Yeah, I think on that point, sort of, you're signing up for the VC economics, and that's not necessarily the economics that are best for you. So the VC economics is one company pays for the whole fund, and all they have to optimize for is that you become one of those companies. And they can do that on behalf of you failing, because they have a subsequent sort of 10 companies that would make up for it. If you look at your own economics, this is the only company that you had. You probably invested sort of 5 years in it. So you're signing up for the VC economics, which I don't think naturally is the best thing to do. But it's sort of, everyone is talking about it as if it's inevitable. Like we're at the conference talking about funding, and then everyone is just about sort of VC funding. But I think especially almost in our industry, VC is a very suboptimal way of financing your business. Because this is a business where I think there are more outcomes in sort of maybe, let's say, $50 to $100 million range than in other industries, but maybe a bit less outcomes in sort of the $1 billion plus range, which are the only ones that a VC is looking for. So I think for a lot of EdTech entrepreneurs, I'd probably, the first thing I would ask is, should I be raising money from VCs at all? If you're not in China.
I do come from a different perspective, but not because I'm in China. But so I completely understand you. You have a 2B business. So while you're making money, do you actually need money that quickly to help you expand? Expand for what? For hiring more people? For setting up offices? It's not really a lot of cost, to be honest. But for us specifically, we are in the 2C space. We've raised 5 rounds without generating any revenue, literally 0 revenue. We are already a unicorn company with 0 revenue. That's okay. This may be shocking. So, but obviously, at a certain point, a lot of VCs, especially the late stage capitalists, especially the PEs, when they want to invest you, because your valuation get higher, they would want to know that you are able to make a profit. So what we did in the past, when we look at VCs, is to look for the ones who understand education, because education is is an industry that takes a long time to monetize. And we were lucky when the company was founded. It was funded by 2 of the previous co-founders of New Oriental, which was top education companies in China, so they understood education, and they knew it would take them years to even generate any revenue, especially in an internet business. What matters is traffic. So for many, many years, we've just used all the VC money to acquire users, and so up to date, we're serving more than 70 million users on our platform. Obviously, we raised the E round last year for $250 million, but for that round, it's because we were actually close to making a profit. We had so at a certain point you have to make a profit. I think. But going back to the other part of the question, I think if we can change something, right? So it's not like we haven't thought of monetization. During the process, even when you reach just 1 million users, you think, hey, it's a number. You can probably monetize off them. So there was a phase in 2015, that was 4 years ago. We had 6 main monetization streams together with many small streams for monetization. None of them worked. Okay, my point is, I still today I think some of them could work. Actually, nowadays we are going back to experimenting some of them, and it's starting to show the growth. The point is, we were so in a rush of monetization to prove our ability because we were at a different size. Then we just exhausted our entire human resources everywhere and without patience. So for doing a lot of projects, after 3 months, if we don't see the growth of any project, but some projects take time, we immediately kill them. So that's some mistakes we made. But see, even investors had patience in us for years, and we didn't have patience for months. So I would say, but still, like the company nowadays is fine, but like there were phases when we could have done better.
But that's also the thing, because you're optimizing on sort of an 18-month time horizon, right? So you're constantly just chasing sort of the next round and optimizing for what VCs would want to see.
Yes, okay. Here's another point. So that's a very good point. You know what happened? So last year, because when we raised rounds, it's because of the premium content we had. So we had a lot of traffic, which we acquired by providing free homework solutions. So they found something for free on our platform, and then we were able to sell premium services to them. That entire business, if you just look at the business, not at the entire company, is profitable. However, in China, it's a weird phenomenon right now that for the same amount of revenue we generate, it's more valuation by doing other business. By other business, I'm specifically talking about live tutoring. So for live tutoring, you actually have a large cost component to that business. But for the same revenue you generate, you probably have 3 times valuation. That would shift our focus. So that's why the biggest business line of our company is actually live tutoring, which is fine. But I would say it's echoing to your point because this is what VC needs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think like like to your point, I think once you take the first round of money, like you need to have that. Like it's either you understand that you are in this game, but you sign up for it too, right? Yeah. It's not like it comes as a surprise to you. Like when you take the money from a VC, but you know you're in the VC game, so you need to understand the other party, and you need to align the incentive. That's something that you need to think of.
Yeah, and very often actually the incentives are not aligned. And that's one of the issues that
that's true.
That I can see with it.
That's true, but again, you signed up for it, so
yeah, you signed up for it.
So
don't sign up for it.
But that's true. And that's like the other thing what we say I think on the market is on the funding market, right? Yeah. It's like first like in terms of EdTech, like there's less and less investments. But also like as you said, like we are like usually VCs are focusing on short-term return. Like whether it's 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, but it's never 20 years. Yeah. And like as a result, like what have emerged from the investments and all of the big winners of VC-backed companies are either like modernize what already exists, administration for universities, things like that, automation, or putting content online. And that's modernization, but it's not that has nothing to do with disruption. And the problem with education is that this is a long cycle. You cannot, have the same type of product and, in a startup as doing a SaaS product that you could have in education. And the problem is that in EdTech, all the money flows to tech, but like almost no money is flowing to ed. And that's, I think, the main point of, bridging the gap between entrepreneurs and education, like really education, not tech, and, VCs in general. But like you probably want to talk about your experience too.
Yeah, thank you. I think we may have covered a lot of the subject. I guess if I can add anything to this, with my experience of raising funds, is that it's also a question of like understanding that all the time and energy, and as you say, most of the time you spend raising money is about meeting people you're never going to see again anytime soon, and they know as well. And so it's like a weird speed dating game. But once you find the good ones, the real interesting things happens after you get the money. And I think we usually underestimate how important it is after you raise funds and after you've got the money to really spend some time with the VCs to really understand what game they are in, so you can understand, and so you can come to an agreement about what the goals are and what pace you want to grow. Because it's true in the EdTech space, I would say VCs are usually more patient than they are in other space. And again, it's a very there's no generalization, and depends on every VC, and so learning how to work with the VC you just got after meeting them for 5 or 6 times is very important because it's a real partner, and although you feel like you made all the work and you want to go back to your product and to your team and stuff after spending so much time raising funds, there is still like 50% of the job that needs to be done after you get the funding with the VC.
Yeah, it's very true, especially to understand what you need to get to for the next round.
Sure.
And, like to your point. It's very true.
At our event in San Francisco, I'm going to steal this line because I thought it was great. One of our investor speakers, we were talking about a similar topic and said that she always hates that when someone compares finding an investor to like getting married, because in her view it's much easier to get out of a marriage. So, but I mean, it seems like all of your kind of themes along the same way is one, finding out whether or not VC is the route for you to go, and really being serious about that, and then making sure that you are finding the right persons if that is, and making that right match. To change gears a little bit, because we are not going to be able to get through half of what I had, but I want to do. We are, here as part of London EdTech Week and EdTech X Europe, and so I'm curious specifically, and each of you kind of have a different, I think, maybe take on this, but what do you see particularly, I guess, attractive, and maybe the obstacles you see about the European EdTech market specifically, and what you're doing, and what your kind of plans are for Europe and beyond?
Sure. So actually, we don't find it that attractive. I think for us, it's, from day one, it's been a lot of focus on the US, and I think it's sort of the sheer sort of fragmentation of, but it's also sort of the nature of our business, right? We sell B2B, and the European market is very fragmented. So sort of maybe the smallest partners we could have or the biggest partners we could have in Europe would be the equivalent of the smallest partners we would have in the US. So for us, it's always made much more sense to focus on the US. I think that the ratio between high quality companies and investors and talent is incredibly beneficial in Europe. There is much, for example, we're based out of Stockholm, Sweden. Google has a stellar team there. Spotify has brought in a lot of high quality talent. But there's not that many really interesting mission-driven deep tech companies in that industry. So I think that ratio between high-quality companies and talent is really beneficial. But generally, from a go-to-market point of view, for a B2B business, I would say it's much trickier than other markets. And also, if you're selling into K-12 with the different curriculums and so on, I think there are certainly more interesting markets in the US. And if you were founded out of China, that market might be sufficient for you. But I think this has been the very nature of Swedish businesses, actually, is that our markets have been too small, so we've had to be global from day one. And that was with Spotify and with all the major Swedish successes. We've had to be global from day one, and I think we've benefited from that as well.
I think Europe would be a great market for 2B business, not for 2C business, because the people here actually pay, and it's a mature market. The majority of our business is 2C, and specifically, it's more exam focused, because that's the situation in Asia. A lot of the education firms that are successful in Asia are doing the majority of their work exam oriented, either test prep, like the live streaming tutoring I just mentioned earlier, homework. It's all exam oriented. I don't think it suits the European market. However, we do see the European market as an inspiring source because we see a lot of innovative ways, like the personalization part, for instance. There are a lot of great companies in Europe. We close partnerships actually from Europe a lot, either content or technology or products. But back to your point, I actually agree for expanding globally. Our preference, because we have a gene of exam-oriented products, we will choose Asia specifically, especially Southeast Asia, probably like Vietnam and Cambodia, because they have equal mindsets and people there work hard, and they have nothing to begin with. So anything that's good enough, you would have a market there. Then I would think Latin America or the whole Pan-Africa region also very interesting. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I have quite same experience, and you all said that it's been more faster and easier for us. We scaled in Finland, so it works in European country, but we are from Finland. But we went straight to Asia, like from Finland, not to Sweden or to UK even. So I think it's every country in Europe has very different decision makings in school, and it's like much harder than what we have found out to start in Southeast Asia. So we are already operating in 6 countries and big deal to 13 countries in Asia and also in Australia. But yeah, it's been, and also the languages and everything. So all the European countries have different languages. You have to translate everything, and so the question came quickly, like how attractive is European market? But I don't see still the point why not to enter the European market. It's just been for us after 18 months easier to go first to Asia.
Yeah, that's really good markets.
Yeah.
No, I think I'm going to say the same thing. It's a very fragmented market, and plus we have GDPR, so it's actually harder to enter
So
a
you
market.
need to deal with the data properly.
Yeah, but at the same time, exactly. At the same time,
in California too.
yeah, but it's not the same level. No, trust me.
Yeah, so the California bars, in my view, it might be worse.
Yeah, it's possible. Okay, we can discuss
Yes.
this offline. But at the same time, this is like super exciting market because nobody's looking at it, and everybody goes to China and to the US because it's a mainstream. But also the fragmentation is because of the different culture that you're gonna encounter in both different markets. There's no one European market. That's the problem. There's no European market. And but at the same time, if you are able to capture those small markets, you get a market that nobody is going to enter, and you're going to win in the long term too. And there's a lot of the things that are happening, like GDPR and stuff, to protect the data and to like more social aspect of this that of the cultures that are going to happen also probably soon in China, probably soon in the US. So if you're already prepared about all of those things, then it's going to help you also grow elsewhere.
Yeah.
That being said, for our products, the way we see how do you disrupt an industry that is the university, you're going to be able to disrupt it more massively and rapidly in countries and regions where those universities doesn't have as strong as a signal in the US or in Canada or Western Europe. So our biggest growth, the way we see it in the future, is actually Western Europe, Africa, South America, Southeast Asia, and not necessarily the biggest markets, as you could see it right away.
Yeah, and I guess also one thing that I found in Europe is that yes, it's way harder, it's a little bit slower than in the US, and people have maybe psychological barriers and
What do you mean by that?
and I mean they are being very cautious with technology and more than in Asia and in the US. So definitely, novelty is not something great on its own. Where something new in the US is shiny and way shinier than it could be in France because of the fact that it's new is not necessarily a good thing. At the same time, so the market is growing. It's starting to grow later and slower than the others. At the same time, the new generation that is now in power in education, the educational system in every country in Europe is now 35, 40 years old. I mean, I guess that's our generation. And it's a different generation for sure. And I think it's a generation that learned how to use very, very modern apps on their phones. that have a different set of expectations as to what type of technology works and what doesn't. They are a generation that is coming from the Facebook scandals and stuff. It's a very, very different, much more mature audience and decision makers. And I think that so that means that now we are in the situation where we can have a very, very fast growing market because there is a change in leadership that is happening now. But I think it's going to be a significant impact. So I'm very hopeful. Although we do still most of our business in the US, but again, this is I'm very hopeful for Europe, and I think that Europe has its own brand and has a lot to bring and to learn from educational technology, specifically about bridging cultures, which is maybe one of the most important issues right now in Europe. So there's a lot to gain at the European scale from educational technologies, I'm sure.
But actually, have you ever tried to go to the European market, or you just had the idea that you go?
Oh, well,
we sort of have ubiquity in the Swedish market, so it's started there. And it's not like we're going to do the European market, it's just from a focus perspective, we decided the US. But we have a lot of partners in Europe as well.
Just thinking, is it only because of the education, comparing health tech, fintech, there are many of those startups that are in Europe and going first, for example, to Germany or to other European countries. Just thinking, that is it like the education startups are having difficulties to start or grow in Europe, or so is it us, or is it really the market, or are we just thinking it's too?
No, like we're talking to a lot of partners to open schools in Europe, and we're probably going to have like the first one in January or maybe June next year. But I think I've been raised and born in France, and the culture of thinking big is not the culture of France. The culture of France is like perfection, and you can't think big with perfection right away. It's a very different mindset than the US culture. So and that's also like one of the strengths of Europe is that you have all those cultures that are also thinking differently, and usually like people think all the same way in the US. That's also like a strength that I think is not really tapped by the European markets. Because there's so many different ideas that are coming from so many different contexts, so many different cultures. And I think that's a strength that we're not really using in Europe.
So I have a few other questions, but we have about 10 minutes left before we're going to switch panels. So I want to open it up in case there are questions in the audience, because we've said a lot here, and so I want to make sure we're addressing those. So, right here,
so you mentioned about fundraising from VCs versus maybe bootstrapping by yourself.
With your business, and sometimes the answer is not building an empire and be like the takes all markets or products. And that's now if you're thinking about building a company, I really invite you to write down right now what is success to you, and also if you're building a product that really needs to be at scale right away. Like for instance, for us, the vision why is and it's still we want to train millions of software engineers. We want to change lives for a lot of people, and on top of that, we needed the money because people do not pay anything upfront. They only pay us once we're successful, and we have a very long life cycle. So we didn't really have the choice. We had to find money somewhere, and then as an entrepreneur, if there's big stories love stories with VCs. The reality is that you take what you can. So if you pitch everybody, especially at the beginning, you pitch everybody and you find the money you want. Choosing the right VC is great if you have the choice, but the reality is 90% of us we don't have the choice, and we don't have a lot of choice at the beginning. Now we have much more choices because we've proven a lot on the market, and we bridged the gap, and we also solved the cash flow issue. But it's also something as a human being, what do you want to build?
Yeah, I think that's a great point to just add a quick on top of that. If you look at the VCs, it's 20 VCs that get 90% of the returns. So most of the VCs you encounter are really average VCs, and they will never return any meaningful funds. But if you're fortunate to get one of these top 20, it's amazing. We've raised VC capital as well, and they are vehicles structured to help you grow, structured to help you recruit the best talent, market, and grow quickly. So if you get one of these top 20 ones, like you certainly have, that's fantastic. But chances are you'll be stuck with one of these VCs, which actually would probably have pretty average returns, and might be pressured to and sort of incentivized to not act in the best manner. So I would do that analysis as well, really looking at the VC economics and ask about sort of historical performance of the VC you're bringing in.
So I know there's a few questions left out there, and we only have a couple minutes left, so we're going to keep the questions and answers short. Like we'll try to do it a minute each. All right. So you got a question over there.
Okay. It's a pretty open question. It came out from what you said about taking money from EdTech investors specifically, and not say general financial investors. First, let me use that word. So the question is, and I'll tell you the context behind it as well. Are there enough EdTech investors really for us to kind of go out as founders and because my understanding is that entire bandwidth is pretty limited. So the context is that I'm an Indian founder. I've raised about $1.5 million. I've primarily raised that money from VCs in Singapore and India who are not EdTech VCs, they're financial VCs, but they're good. They understand the market, but definitely they're not education VCs. And as I look at my next round, I'm left wondering that, hey, could I raise money from an education investor, because that person will open these floodgates for me, which these guys, or say anybody who's like kind of even supporting these guys, would be able to open, which is saying it's say access to universities or access to say the ed ecosystem and things like that. But I think what you get conflicted around is that, hey, I need these education VCs, but are there actually enough of them out there
into tech, but to be the educational content and pedagogy what we were good at. And so even the investor, if it's something different, they wanted to invest in us, but for the different idea. So I think it's very good to be really transparent and real about and get the feedback also.
Wait, did you take those investors?
Sorry?
Did you take those investors?
Yeah.
And did you change the product afterwards?
It kind of changed. It was that we didn't have the product kind of already. We had another product, and they said that you should focus on that, not the tech thing we were thinking of.
Okay.
Yeah.
The investors actually will give you a lot of information of what's happening in the market. So as long as it's a discussion, it usually works, especially when you chose investors that have a similar mindset as yours. So like for our cases, apart from the very last round, a lot of PEs were in us. But before the last round, a lot of VCs, they actually financial investors, by the way, they have been investing in education companies a lot. So they understood the mindset and they understood how much time it would take for a company to grow. So they would do similar amount of work, from their perspective, finding out what would it benefit you. So as long as you both find it mutually, benefiting, then it's actually, it works well.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for the panelists. We're going to start with another panel, actually, just as soon as we can get set up, because